Have you ever held something so small, so fragile, that it could buy you dinner at the finest restaurant in Paris, yet disappear between your fingers in an instant? This is saffron, the world's most precious spice, worth more, gram for gram, than gold. But saffron is not just expensive, it is ancient. It is royal. It is the thread that has stitched together empires, seduced queens, and sparked wars. We begin in a kitchen bathed in warm golden light. A chef in crisp white sleeves leans over a pot of simmering broth. With a hand as careful as a jeweler, he opens a tiny crystal jar. Inside, a few delicate strands the color of burning sunsets. He drops them into the broth, and the liquid blooms into amber, releasing a perfume that is at once honeyed, floral, and earthy like the memory of autumn leaves. To the untrained eye, it might seem like a simple flavoring, but to those who know, saffron is a passport to centuries past, a ticket to walk through the palaces of Persia, the spice markets of Moorish Spain, the courts of Mughal India, and the silk-lined salons of Parisian haute cuisine. Its story begins not in a kitchen, but in a field, the crocus sativus, a modest purple flower that blooms only for a few weeks each autumn. From each blossom, just 3 crimson stigmas, and they must be plucked by hand before the morning sun grows too hot. Imagine it, entire fields of violets swaying in the dawn light, bent-backed harvesters moving in silence, their baskets filling slowly, painfully slowly. It takes more than 70,000 flowers to yield just 1 pound of saffron. Perhaps that is why, in the days of ancient Persia, saffron was the domain of kings. Darius the Great steeped his bathwater in saffron threads, believing it would grant him strength. Cleopatra used it to scent her skin before meeting Mark Antony, the air around her sweet and heady with gold. But saffron's path was not limited to the east. It traveled with traders and conquerors, carried along the great spice routes that linked Asia to the Mediterranean. The Greeks painted with it, the Romans perfumed their theaters with it, and medieval Europeans fought over it, in what history remembers as the Saffron Wars. Even today, its price is guarded with secrecy. True saffron, the kind plucked in the cool Kashmiri mornings or in the golden plains of La Mancha, Spain, is a luxury that chefs protect like treasure. And for the wealthy, a meal infused with real saffron is not simply dinner. It is a statement. As we begin this journey, we will follow saffron through time and across continents. We will step into the markets where it is sold in whispered negotiations, into the royal kitchens where it transformed feasts into legends, and into the Michelin-starred dining rooms where a single thread can turn an ordinary dish into an unforgettable indulgence. Because saffron is not just a spice, it is a crown in the pantry of civilization, and its story is only just beginning. Picture yourself seated at a table not of wood, but of carved marble. Candles flicker in golden holders, their light dancing across silver goblets and plates inlaid with jewels. Outside, the air is heavy with the scent of jasmine drifting through a palace garden. Inside, servants glide silently, carrying dishes fit for emperors. And at the heart of it all, the color of the feast is not silver nor gold, but a deep molten amber. Saffron. In ancient Persia, saffron was more than a seasoning. It was a signature of royalty. The kings of the Achaemenid Empire believed it could grant vitality, sharpen the mind, and even heal the body. Warriors soaked their bandages in saffron-infused water, trusting its antiseptic power to close wounds and keep away infection. It was not merely eaten, it was worn. Robes were dyed in saffron's golden hue to display wealth and divine favor. In the royal gardens of Persepolis, fountains were scented with saffron, so that even the air whispered of luxury. Farther west, the Greeks embraced saffron not just as food, but as art. The Minoans, centuries before the rise of Athens, painted saffron gatherers on their palace walls. Young women in flowing dresses, bending over the delicate crocus flowers. In Greek mythology, saffron was tied to the tale of Crocus and Smilax, a story of love, transformation, and eternal beauty. Then came Rome, and the Romans, with their appetite for spectacle, found new ways to indulge. The elite of the empire used saffron to perfume their public baths, to scent their bedchambers, and even to shower the amphitheaters in its fragrance during games. Imagine gladiators battling under a rain of saffron-infused petals while the crowd roared in delight. But saffron was not without its shadows. Its rarity made it a prize worth stealing and worth killing for. Along the trade routes, caravans carrying saffron were as heavily guarded as those carrying gold or silk. Pirates in the Mediterranean targeted ships rumored to carry the spice, knowing that a small chest of saffron could be traded for a fortune. It is in these ancient courts and markets that saffron's identity as the spice of the elite truly crystallized. To serve it was to show power. To wear it was to embody wealth. And to taste it was to sip from the very cup of history. Even today, when chefs place a saffron-infused dish before their most valued guests, they are unknowingly repeating a ritual thousands of years old. One where the dining table becomes a throne and the meal becomes a coronation. Before saffron can grace a royal table, before it can perfume a steaming bowl of bouillabaisse or turn a simple risotto into golden silk, it must first be born in the earth. And its birth is unlike that of any other spice. Picture a cold autumn dawn. The horizon is still bruised with the last shadows of night. A mist clings to the soil, and in the half-light, the fields appear dusted in violet, the crocus sativus, each bloom no larger than the palm of a hand, yet holding within it a prize worth more than any gemstone. Workers move slowly through the rows, their backs bent, hands reaching delicately toward each flower. There is no machine that can harvest saffron, no shortcut, only human touch, careful, precise, and endlessly patient. From each blossom, just 3 tiny crimson threads, the stigmas, must be plucked. Not 4, not 2, always 3. They are fragile as breath, lighter than a whisper, and yet they carry the weight of centuries. Once collected, the stigmas are laid out on fine mesh screens to dry. This is where their magic deepens, as the deep red turns darker, more intense, and the scent blossoms into something impossible to describe without poetry. Honey, hay, a trace of iron, a sigh of the sea, all folded into one. It is a labor that defies logic in the modern age. 70,000 flowers for just 1 pound of saffron. And that pound? Commanding thousands of dollars in the markets of Madrid, Tehran, or Delhi. In La Mancha, Spain, the harvest is a festival. Families gather to pluck side by side. Stories are told, songs are sung. And in the evenings, the air is thick with the aroma of saffron-infused stews. In Kashmir, it is a ritual of devotion. Each flower gathered before the sun rises high enough to warm the petals, for heat can steal the spice's soul. The rarity is not by accident. The crocus sativus is a delicate plant, sterile and unable to grow from seed. It must be propagated by dividing and replanting its corms, a process as slow and deliberate as the harvest itself. This is why saffron has never been a common flavor, never been a spice of the masses. It is the product of patience, precision, and a quiet kind of reverence for the earth. And perhaps that is what makes it taste so rich. Not just the flavor on the tongue, but the knowledge that every thread has been touched by human hands and gathered under the first blush of morning. Once the precious threads left the fields where they were born, saffron began a second life, one not in soil, but in the hands of merchants, kings, and dreamers. Along dusty caravan routes, across storm-tossed seas, it traveled as both a treasure and a temptation. In medieval Europe, saffron was so coveted that it sparked not just desire, but conflict. The 14th century saw what history calls the Saffron War, a 14-week battle in which a shipment of saffron bound for Basel was seized by noblemen. The spice was worth more than gold, and worth spilling blood over. Those who controlled saffron's flow controlled influence itself. In Venice, the spice merchants were as powerful as bankers. They dealt not in coins alone, but in flavors that could command royal attention. Saffron became the secret key to prestige, gracing the tables of dukes and popes. In the grand feasts of the Renaissance, chefs would stir saffron into their creations, not merely for taste, but to signal that their patron could afford to turn sunlight into food. Farther east, the Mughal courts of India embraced saffron with a passion bordering on worship. The emperors of Delhi wore robes infused with its hue, drank sherbets perfumed with its essence, and presided over banquets where saffron-colored rice shimmered beneath silver platters. In the famed Kashmiri valleys, farmers cultivated saffron as if tending a sacred relic, the crimson threads, destined for the palaces traveled in guarded caravans, as precious as any jewel. Across the Islamic world, saffron found a place in both faith and festivity. In Morocco, it was stirred into fragrant tagines for wedding feasts, its golden tint a blessing for prosperity and joy. In Persia, it was offered as a gift between rulers, not just as food, but as a gesture of peace or alliance. Even in far-off China, saffron's allure reached the imperial courts. Though not native, it was imported along the Silk Road, reserved for the emperor's physicians and palace kitchens. There, it was prescribed for health, longevity, and the subtle glow it gave to the skin, a luxury from the inside out. And yet, for all its global reach, saffron never lost its intimacy. It could transform the grandest royal banquet, but also the humblest family table. A single pinch could turn an ordinary meal into something whispered about for days. In this way, saffron became not just a spice, but a bridge between the East and the West, between peasant and king, between the hands of those who grew it and the lips of those who tasted it. Today, saffron's journey has brought it into a realm where taste meets artistry, and where a single dish can cost more than a month's rent. It sits on the shelves of the most exclusive kitchens, guarded like fine wine, measured like gold dust. In Paris, chefs at Michelin-starred restaurants unlock small glass jars of saffron with the care of a jeweler unveiling a diamond. They drop the threads into warm liquid, never boiling, never rushed, allowing them to bloom slowly, releasing color and perfume into the dish like a secret unfolding. In these kitchens, saffron is not just an ingredient, it is an event. In Spain, paella becomes something transcendent when touched by saffron. The golden hue that seeps through the rice is a signature, a promise that what you are about to eat has been blessed by centuries of tradition. In La Manca, the birthplace of Spanish saffron, there are restaurants where the spice's origin is proudly declared on the menu, much like a fine wine's vintage and vineyard. In Italy, risotto alla Milanese gleams like a bowl of molten sunshine. The saffron here is treated with almost religious reverence. It is often served on special occasions, its color and aroma marking the moment as extraordinary. In some private clubs of Milan, a saffron risotto is prepared tableside, so the guests can watch the threads dissolve into the broth, as if witnessing alchemy. In Morocco, the scent of saffron mingles with cinnamon and preserved lemon in royal tagines, dishes that can take hours to prepare, and which are served in hand-painted clay vessels to visiting dignitaries. Here, saffron is not just for taste, it is for respect. Even in the East, saffron's power endures. In the palatial hotels of Dubai, it is woven into desserts, from saffron-infused baklava to ice creams that shimmer with edible gold. Guests who order them are not just buying dessert, they are buying a statement that luxury can be eaten, savored, and remembered. Private dining experiences around the world now feature saffron in ways that defy expectation. Chefs infuse it into cocktails, into butters for Wagyu steaks, even into the foam atop oysters. Each use is a deliberate act, a way of saying to the guest, "You are worth this." And yet, for all its sophistication, saffron retains its old magic, the ability to elevate the ordinary into the unforgettable. That is why it continues to seduce the palates of those who can afford to indulge, and intrigue those who can only dream. Gold has always been the color of desire. It is the hue of crowns, of coins, of sunsets that seem to set the whole sky aflame. And saffron is gold you can taste. For millennia, humans have been drawn to it for reasons beyond hunger. It is beauty made edible, luxury distilled into a thread, so fine it could be carried away by the gentlest breeze. In ancient times, kings hoarded it, poets praised it, lovers gave it as a gift more precious than jewels. In temples, it was burned as incense to call the gods closer. In palaces, it was stirred into feasts so magnificent that their memory would outlive the monarchs who paid for them. Its allure lies in the balance between fragility and power. One thread alone cannot flavor a meal, but together they can transform it completely. It is a reminder that greatness often comes in small, unassuming forms. Saffron's journey from the violet bloom of a humble crocus to the silver spoon of a royal table is a story of patience, devotion, and the quiet understanding that some pleasures are worth waiting for. And perhaps that is why it continues to captivate the world's most discerning palates. Not because it is rare, not because it is costly, but because when it touches the tongue, it carries with it the warmth of ancient sunrises, the whispers of old markets, and the promise that for one fleeting moment, you are tasting time itself. So the next time a dish arrives at your table, gleaming with that unmistakable golden hue, know that you are about to partake in something that has crossed continents, survived centuries, and conquered empires. It is more than food. It is history, beauty, and desire, spun into a single delicate thread. And that is the true luxury of saffron. If you enjoyed this journey into the world's most precious spice, stay with us. More stories of taste, history, and indulgence await. Until then, savor the gold.